Hello everyone, my name is the Mad Scorpion and welcome to another reset update for Xur on this Friday, March the 21st of 2025. Now getting into it, I'm not gonna lie, it is a bit of a year one throwback, is pretty much everything in terms of exotics is something exclusively from the first year of Destiny 2. So let's go ahead and jump right into what's available with the catalysts. The first, the Coldheart catalyst, which between this, I would say it's useful in the idea that it gets reload speed as well as stability buff, at least, but stat buff, let me emphasize. And with that, it is good mainly just because with Coldheart being one of those weapons that it is benefited from just holding down the trigger and doing nothing but sustained fire, stability does in the end actually become a benefit, but it is a very limited benefit. And speaking of limited, then there is the Borealis catalyst, which in terms of Borealis, it might be in a very good state, but its catalyst just buffs its reload speed, which as a total is a negligible catalyst to say the best. But however, being an aggressive range sniper, reload speed is typically something that is low by default, so a little bit of a buff does help it, but at the same time, it is just a reload speed buff. If you wanted to improve that, you could easily put on a loader in arms, so a catalyst dedicated to it is a bit lacking. Then next for our armor, Graviton Forfeit that came out with the Curse of Osiris DLC in year one basically improved invisibility. So it improves the duration of any sort of invisibility, and while you are invisible, your smoke bomb or any other melee abilities will recharge faster, your weapons reload faster, and your recovery is increased. So it is basically the idea of, hey, do you need to dodge to get out of a frisky situation? Well, guess what? You are more ready to go back into that situation after leaving your invisibility. Next is the ACD-O feedback fence, where it's a bit of a unique one in that melee hits will grant you armor charge, and you take less melee damage while you have armor charge. Then as well, taking melee damage causes you to emit a burst of damaging arc electricity that jolts targets, consuming your armor charge and dealing more damage based on the number of stacks. I don't know if the jolt works without armor charge period, because it does say consume it, but this has definitely gone around the bend a few times, because it used to be just get punched and it emits a little bit of a damaging wave. It wasn't specific to any element per se, but then with the armor charge system and a few reworks, it is now very build dependent in a weird way. So if you want to build into some armor charge, you may be able to wreck the field, but aside from that, it is basically just get hit back. Next is the Sanguine Alchemy for Warlocks, which it was fairly reworked and is kind of top tier DPS now, where it makes standing in any rift, damaging a target will mark it, and you deal extra weapon damage to mark targets and gain additional bonus damage with weapons that match the damage type of your super. Weapon final blows while standing in any rift pause the rift's cooldown, extending its duration. And so at that point, it usually is paired with an Empowering Rift or a Well of Radiance, and from that point, using something like Whisper of the Worm or doing a Storm Trance, or I should say Chaos Reach build in Queenbreaker could definitely surge this to a top DPS option in case you aren't restricted to something else on Warlocks. Next, into the currencies, just to wrap it all out, we do have an exotic cipher on the front page, but then into the strange offers, 2 Ascendant Shards for 71 strange coins in a total, then Enhancement Cores, Glimmer, as well as Nightfall Ciphers, earnable in stacks of 2 for 97 strange coins. But then into our main options, even more year one, minus Hawkmoon, which will always be here, this time with Quick Draw, we have the Crimson, which is to say a burst fire hand cannon before that was an archetype. Its whole exotic perk is the fact that it is a 3-round burst hand cannon, and its main trait of Cruel Remedy, where kills will heal the wielder and precision kills will refill the magazine. Think Huckleberry, but also Red Death. This was once upon a time the thing that made me think Red Death wasn't going to return into Destiny, but lo and behold, it did with the final shape, and I'd say this has been left behind everywhere but the Crucible crowd. In the same extent, its Catalyst, I believe, is another pure stat buff, giving it, I think, range and reload, or maybe a little bit more maxing out stability, but it isn't anything exactly unique on its same page. The next is the Tractor Cannon, which officially, this is supposed to be primary energy and heavy, and there's 2 heavies here. That's funny. But with Tractor Cannon, basically, it's the Bloop Gun, a shotgun that emits a powerful impulse that pushes enemies away, suppresses their abilities, and makes them more vulnerable to all incoming damage. Basically, the hammer that primes something for DPS, especially effective against Lightborn Guardians and or Lightborn Hive, and other things that can go into those unique active states. As well, when you damage something, you temporarily get an increase in speed and handling. So it's kind of meant as both a hit and run, as well as a hot swap option in terms of going into damage with other options. In the same respect, its catalyst rewards it with, I believe, an extended ammo capacity as well as increased ammo inventory caps. Then next is the Wardcliff Coil, which is to say just rocket launcher with tracking minus tracking, if that makes sense. The weapon fires a volley of rockets and grants bolt charge to all nearby allies for every other rocket that fires. And as well, the mechanized autoloader makes it so that you automatically reload when picking up ammo. However, the stipulation with that being that you have to be holding the Wardcliff Coil, it can't be reloaded in the holster. As well, the catalyst, it basically just improves your rocket's tracking. However, they aren't designated tracking like you would see with the normal tracking rocket launcher of Isa Tomorrow. It is basically fire and the rockets track targets themselves, which means they could all go after one target theoretically, or they could go after every target you weren't intending. So it's still, in a weird way, just not exactly there in the meta. I'm sure the bolt charge aspect of it makes it nifty, but still, I don't see it being very endgame efficient in any frame. Next, in terms of our random weaponry, we have the Legal Action, a fairly effective high-impact pulse rifle. This perk set is not exactly great, but for the Crucible crowd, may be a fan of that. Next is the Kept Confidence, a strand adaptive frame hand cannon from Season of the Witch. This one being a craftable one, and mostly a, say, Crucible-based one, given the amount of stat buffs and handling buffs this thing can get, and not exactly many PvE benefits. Next is the Chrysaora Mellow, which is a high-impact frame solar auto rifle from Season of the Lost. It is still one of those ones that are heavily outdated just because they launched just shy of Witch Queen, so there's no 3.0 benefit perks on it. It's basic gun just from early days of Destiny, essentially. Next is the Bria's Love, which is a void vertical frame scout rifle from Season of the Witch as well. Less so in terms of, I'd say, Crucible only, but I definitely don't think it compares to something like maybe New Vision of Confluence or other vertical frame scout rifles that you could craft in this time and day, if there are any more. Next is the Temptation's Hook, a arc caster frame sword, which this version is only unique now because it has a limited perk pool. Then again, the Temptation's Hook was freshly reworked and remade this season, so it is earnable and updated, so you might be able to get something like Rolling Storm, Jolting Feedback, other things like that. Then the Just In Case, a solar sword from the Season of the Deep, or Season of Deep, I think it was. Basically, the Titan season this season, which is just a straight-up adaptive frame sword, and it didn't come with many 3.0 options, so in the end, it is just a sword. And lastly, speaking of just a sword, you have the original class swords for each respective characters. Obviously, Titans have the Crown Splitter, Hunters have the Quick Fang, and the Warlocks have the Infinity's Edge, which nowadays is multi-used for a variety of different classes, so keep that in mind when looking at some of these roles. And with that, and the Werewalker Helm, or Armor set, or basic Titan set from Season of the Deep, that is the end of the Xur stock reset update for this Friday. My name is the Mad Scorpion, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video.